GPT's answers are based on when they were trained, and so they are not current. With online access you can get around this, like it is offered by some add-ons and pro versions of some GPTs, but you have to pay a fee for this. How about a GPT with online access that is completely free? In this video I'll show you how to install such a GPT on Windows or Linux, install the online access, and in the end we'll have a look at some examples. Let's start. First we'll install some tools we'll need in order to get all things up and running. First of all, CrewAI. By the way, you find all links in the description below. CrewAI is a framework for AI agents, and we will misuse them a bit and just use them for the online access, because that's very easy by using CrewAI, as you will see in a few moments. Additionally, we require Ollama. Ollama is the framework we are using to run our GPT. There are several options to run Ollama. Windows is coming soon, currently not available, but it's possible to run it on Linux and WSL2, which is possible. Well, WSL2 is a framework for running Linux on Windows. We need some Windows features in order to activate WSL. It's in German, but I think you get the trick. So we need the VM platform and we need the Windows system or the Windows subsystem for Linux. So make sure to tick these both features on your Windows system. The installation of WSL is not very complicated. Just WSL install, and you have to be administrator in the Windows PowerShell. As you can see, I have already installed it before. Well, I've tested it for you. So it's already installed, and we have to continue the installation in a different way. So we just type in WSL and install by adding Ubuntu. This installation of Ubuntu will take a while, so we will just fast forward. The installation was successful, and it seems we have to update the kernel component. That's our next step. It's quite probable that you only need to type in the WSL.exe install from the beginning. If you hadn't installed WSL before, that's completely fine, and the whole installation will finish for you without any trouble. So that's what we're seeing here is just because I had installed WSL before, and I'll show you some of these steps just in case you run into trouble. Then you can immediately see how I have solved this. Okay, we update the Linux subsystem. This takes a moment, we just fast forward, but it shouldn't be too long. After everything is installed, we check the version of the WSL. Just in case you did it like I did and installed a version before, it's version 2. Version 2 is perfectly fine. In case you have installed WSL1, you can just set it to 2 with this command. The Windows subsystem for Linux can be used in order to run Linux distributions like Ubuntu on our Windows system, and it's surprisingly fast. And for text-based applications, it's an option to use it instead of a complete Linux installation. Nevertheless, regarding graphics, there are some restrictions, but we'll see this in a few moments. Now let's start our first Ubuntu terminal. That's done with the command WSL. And here is what I've expected. There is an error. Normally you will not experience this error, but in case you face same error, this is how you solve it. We unregister Ubuntu and install it again. Well, I just fast forward because this takes a moment. And after a short moment, we can enter our new username and the password. Okay, that's all. The installation was successful and we can access our Ubuntu distribution on our Windows system. Next is installing Ollama on WSL. It's same as we do for Linux. The password for sudo is required. Okay, now this is interesting. There is no NVIDIA GPU, that's correct. I have an AMD GPU and it says Ollama will run in CPU only mode. What I have learned is with latest WSL2, the support for NVIDIA GPUs is already integrated. So there is nothing else for you to do, dear NVIDIA users. So it should run and have GPU support, but that's not true for AMD users. So after we have tested the Ollama installation, I will show how to install on Linux and what to consider in order to use the AMD GPU. In order to run Ollama, we can use the run command as we see in the quick start. And the run command is a command you can use always for starting your models with Ollama, because the model is downloaded by the run command if it is not already installed on your PC. And if you use the run command a second time and then it automatically discovers the model is installed on your machine, it will not download it again and simply run the model. Here is the model library, or at least some examples of these models, but we will install one model which is currently not in the list, and that's OpenHermes. Yeah, pulling, you can see the download has started. It takes a moment, we just fast forward. That was successful. Here are the available commands. And you can directly type in your instruction for the GPT. Here we have a very short task for OpenHermes, and as you can see it works, and it's very slow because I'm using an AMD GPU which is not supported by WSL2 as we have seen before. So next thing to do is using Linux for AMD users. If you don't want to use the CPU NVIDIA users can just directly jump to the next chapter or stay if you are interested in how to use Linux with Ollama, but it's very similar to WSL. So that's my Linux installation, and in order to show you my ROCm version, ROCm is the driver layer for AMD GPUs. I have version 5.6. To show you some details about my GPU, I have an AMD Radeon 6800. So ROCm is already installed on my machine. If you haven't already installed ROCm on your system, then have a look at this video. It's about ROCm on Linux for AMD. Installation of Ollama is same as for WSL, even the same command is used. We enter the root password, and again it says no NVIDIA GPU detected, will run in CPU only mode. But here this is not true. I know this sounds really strange, but this message is not correct. In a few moments you will see that my AMD GPU is supported and runs very fast with Ollama. So ignore this message on Linux if you have a correctly installed ROCm version, and you will have this support. But let's continue. So the model file is downloaded. We just speed up the whole process. Fast forward. In order to prove that the GPU is supported on my machine, we pull the ROCm SMI command. You see the performance of the GPU, and enter a command for our OpenHMS, and you can see the GPU is definitely used and it's running very fast. The next steps are same for Linux and for WSL. First we'll install Miniconda, which helps us creating environments for Python. So let's continue. There we already have the command to install Miniconda. So just copy, paste, run. The installation takes a moment, but that's not very tricky. Then we have to initialize Miniconda, and we have to reopen our current shell. So just log out and start again. In front of the prompt there is the word base, just in order to show that currently no environment is active, but we will just create a new environment containing a Python installation. We name it CrewAI and use Python 3.10. Takes a short moment, we will fast forward. And now we activate the new CrewAI environment. We create a new directory for CrewAI, and on the CrewAI web page there we find the command to install CrewAI, and additionally we install DuckDuckGo Search, which is our search engine, so that's for the promised online access. Both components are installed very fast, and next thing is we use the provided example of CrewAI just in order to test our installation. So copy everything and we create a new file, demo.py, paste everything. We have to do a few changes. CrewAI is on progress, so there are always changes and bug fixes, and in this version I've corrected some things, and here you can see I modify some lines in order to use the OpenHermes model instead of OpenAI. If you want to know more about CrewAI and its concepts, have a look at the very good introduction video from Matthew Berman. I've linked it in the description below. I just quickly edit the file in order to have things running. You can download this file from my GitHub page. I have linked below in the description. So in this video we'll just concentrate on the online access by using CrewAI. So we finished editing. For Windows users it might be a bit unusual to have a text editor for changing our file. So there is a very good option with WSL to use your usual text editor like Notepad++ or Visual Studio Code. If you have already installed it on your machine, then you can find in the Windows Explorer a new Linux link, and there is the complete directory structure from Ubuntu. So you have all usual directories, and in home, well, there is your home directory, and yeah, there is the CrewAI subdirectory we have created, and simply access the file with the tool you like. Notepad++ is just an example for this. So let's just start the demo. It's only in order to check whether the installation works. We'll use a different Python file for our online access anyhow. It's very slow, or at least WSL is very slow on my machine with AMD GPU, so I'll just fast forward. And in the end, we'll have a look at the result. So let's have a look. The task was to write the latest advancements in AI in 2024. We have two crew members. One is the research analyst and the second one is the writer. So let's just check if they worked together and used the tool. The tool in this case is the online access with DuckDuckGo search, so the one we are using too. And yeah, the research analyst is accessing the search tool. He gets some input, uses the tool and the online access again in order to get more input. Then he has enough input and passes everything to the writer. So the writer takes the input and creates a, well, document or beautified output. So, okay, the writer is called Tech Content Strategist. Well, it's the crew member just getting the input and writing an article or a blog post about these AI trends. And obviously it has worked, doesn't need to use a tool, takes just the input from the analyst, and what we have as a result is well, a blog post about future developments of AI. So this has worked, and we can now use the different Python scripts in order to use OpenHermes together with some online access. By the way, if you enjoyed the video so far and want to see more content like this, press the subscribe button. I just switched to Linux in order to speed things up. Let's have a short look at the new online.py file I've created. Of course, you find it in the GitHub page I have linked below. And the good news is it's even shorter than the CrewAI example. What I did was I have removed one of the agents and there is now only one agent. Well, it's the senior research analyst. We could use a different name, but what's important is there is a different goal, a different backstory. So he should use our input and do something with our input. And the same is true for the task description. So we will use some input, pass some input, and this agent will use our input, and if required, he will use the online tool, so DuckDuckGo search, in order to access the web and get additional information next to the information which is already in the LLM. And we pass our input as a parameter, so that's already in here. I have added a line called process. Although the default process of CrewAI is sequential anyhow, I had the impression it did not work that well when I have omitted the process parameter. The rest is standard and very similar to what we have seen in the example. But now it's time to run some examples and compare the output of the original OpenHermes with, well, the version or the output which is provided by using our Python script with CrewAI. First, we want to find the opening hours and ratings for the best sushi restaurant in New York. And the original OpenHermes just gives a process how to find this best restaurant, and for our online output, yes, it searches the web and we even get the opening hours, so that's okay, and for sure better than just the process description as the original OpenHermes did. Now let's find the best flight details from New York to Paris for the upcoming weekend. Again, there is just the process description how to get this information. So what about our online solution? Oh, it does not use a tool and it did a process description similar to the original OpenHermes. That's not what we want. Let's try again. This time it's accessing the tool and it even gives us the price for the round trip and hints to the airlines which can be used. That's good. Regarding using the tool and going online and offline, please consider, similar to normal GPTs, there is some randomness within this model. So sometimes it will use the tool where it's obvious, and sometimes it will not. This was the case for the airlines. So we want to have the fastest route from New York to Boston. And yeah, as we already know, there is no current information in the original Hermes. It just did a process description, how to find this fastest route. What about our online tool? Good, it uses some online information, and oh, that is interesting. Fastest route is not available because of snowstorm. Okay, if we compare with the weather web page, then it's true. So the online access has definitely won. Good, this one is difficult, at least for the Open Hermes without online access. We just want to have scientific articles about artificial intelligence from the last 6 months. Yeah, again, the process description, and if we just check, okay, obviously Open Hermes has been trained till March 14th, so that's why we cannot get current information. What about our online tool? Yeah, it's using the online access. And yes, we have current articles from 2024. That's good. If running Open Hermes with online access was interesting for you, please consider leaving a like or a comment. Well, now it's up to you how to continue. You can just use the online tool in order to, well, use Open Hermes with online access, or you can even play around a bit with the file, change the goal and the backstory, for example, according to your needs. What's your special interest? You can just modify those things, and maybe you can even add a second agent, so very similar to the demo we have seen before. And well, this second agent can, for example, provide a better output for you, do some formatting of the output, and by doing it that way you can even learn more about CrewAI.